Trying times. I said these are trying times.
We have the coolest music team in town. And you are some of the finest, most progressive, open-minded, cool, balanced people. Radically inclusive. If my experience of Jesus would be that he would have been a humanist more than a prophet or a savior and all that stuff. I just think the one that I've studied was a sacred human. He cared for the human race. And that's what I consider myself, whether somebody calls me a reverend or a bishop or son of a bishop. I want to be known as somebody who loved humanity and respected the dignity of human beings being human. I don't think there's a higher dignity on the planet for us than to be who we are unapologetically. As an African American on Juneteenth, and then this is Pride Month and this is Father's Day, I'm making a connection between my grandfather and my father, both of whom have transitioned. But Grandpa told me first about Juneteenth when I worked for him and with him at a service station across the street from my junior high school that he and my dad owned. And I was about 14, and out of the clear blue, he just said one day, "Would y'all go celebrate Juneteenth?" He couldn't read, he couldn't write. He's from East Texas, had left the little city under the bottom of a horse-driven carriage to be protected from the Ku Klux Klan, who were going to kill him because only a few moments earlier he had insulted a white owner of a grocery store, a little grocery store where they all lived like indentured servants, slaves. And the man was going to sell him some meal and charge him exorbitantly. And my grandfather, who had a temper anyway, tall, very, very dark complected man, a Creek Indian in him, he said, I can do better than that, cross the street. That's the way he talked. And the man said, the hell you're going to do better than that? I crawled up these ladders to get this. You're going to buy this stuff. And my grandfather said, the hell I am. And got out of there because in seconds they had a Ku Klux Klan had filled the truck and they were going to kill him. So his mother put him under, my great-grandmother, Mama Cassie, put him under the train and waited till sundown and had him taken to the little city where he could get on a train and go out to Arizona, where he did. And later my grandmother and my mother, who was only 3 then, followed him. And then they moved to San Diego, where my grandmother and mother worked in La Jolla, in wealthy white people's homes. She was the live-in maid, and my mother lived in luxury only because they were living there as maids. So my history goes back, but I didn't know what Grandpa meant when he said, and he didn't know. I said, well, what's Juneteenth? He said, I don't know. We just had chicken and barbecue and played baseball, and our mama told us to do it. My grandfather didn't know what Juneteenth, he didn't know it was June 19th. But a lot of the slaves at that time, not only in Texas, but around the country, couldn't read, and they were not good with numbers, had not learned a lot about education. So they just said Juneteenth. He didn't even realize it was June 19th. And I began to think about it, and who knew? I never knew that here we are, 2020. Talking about numbers. 2022, it's now a national holiday. But it's about withholding information, important, impacting information, from deserving people for whom the information would be life-changing. The Emancipation Proclamation had been signed in 1864, the President of the United States, but it didn't get to Texas. Not even some of the white people knew that, because there was no CNN and radio and all that, so a lot of people didn't know. Ignorance still prevails in a lot of parts, and ignorance doesn't just mean to not know. Sometimes it means to just not notice or to refuse to make note of. And there's certain people in our culture today on all races who refuse to make note of the important changes that we are and are supposed to be. But I remember my grandfather telling me many, many stories, and my great-grandfather on my mother's side is half white. His father repeatedly raped his mother because they worked for them like slaves in East Texas. Eventually she got pregnant. That was the only quote-unquote mulatto son he had, and he claimed him as his son and gave him the name Evans. And Papa, whom we knew him as Papa, was a Pentecostal preacher later on. He had so many white features that he could actually get on his horse and rush up on lynchings and stop them under the name of his father. But he died without running water or electricity in his home. I remember playing the piano at his funeral in the 60s. When we celebrate things like Juneteenth and something as radical as pride, with the same gender-loving people being celebrated rather than tolerated and being proud of who they are. I remember when the Black and Proud thing came out, and that was something that we'd never even considered, being proud to be black. I've heard all my life, you're low income. That wasn't an insult, that was a description of who we were. Low income, poor people, underprivileged people. That's just what you hear all your life. I said in the last service, the house I live in now, the only time I would have even visited a house like that was to clean it, which I did with my mother. Not my mother, but my grandmother, my godmother, my aunts, and most of the females in our culture in the 50s and 60s. I was born in 53. Most African-American women were domestic workers. And so, but that was just a culture. You get used to that. We've come a long, long way, and now there seems to be an energy on the planet, and in this country in particular, that wants to take us back. To me, make America great again just means make America hate again legally. And it's sponsored by an energy that is vile and vicious and self-centered and sociopathic. I know you're raising your eyebrows because you didn't want to hear politics, but we're talking about Juneteenth and people that are still trying to suppress truth. I've never seen this side of America so up close. I'm stunned. I was a Republican from the time Ronald Reagan became president all the way up to Obama when he ran. So I'm not talking about partisanship in this sense. I'm talking about racism and bigotry and arrogance and meanness and insensitivity and elitism, and how that throws in the face of Juneteenth again. We have to change. I consider you progressives. Even that we have this particular service, and really, the way Randy introduced the service or the gathering, it was radically inclusive. All the things he said, you're used to hearing it because we said each time, but that means we're radically inclusive. And I don't want to sound exclusive in some of the things I am saying, but there's some things that should be excluded, and that is the bitter racism that we allow and tolerate in this country to the point that the world wonders what our democracy really is. It is embarrassing to say I'm American today. I have people contacting me, and a lot of it's from, I'll just say this, I've been a fourth generation classical fundamentalist Pentecostal evangelical all my life. So now I'm a Unicostal, of course, and I get it. But all my years of study showed me that racism in this country, not their racism and slavery in all cultures, it's not just for black people, white people, Chinese, racism is everywhere. The most bitter racism is in this country because millions, about 30 million, Africans were taken against their will off the continent, away from their culture, their parents, the consciousness, and brought here, couldn't speak the language, didn't understand the culture, and were forced into slavery. Now, many of them have always felt good because they were in a black-dominated culture. Now, white people, some of the slaves had never even seen a ship or a sail. They had never seen the ocean. Some of them walked 200 miles on foot. to get there. Their feet were bleeding. Some of them were killed by menacing animals on the journey. I've been to the east coast of the west coast of Africa. I've been to Ghana and Accra. I've been in those slave forts. I've been in the dungeons that were built for about 800 people, and there'd be 2,000 or 3,000 crammed in there in hot, sweaty weather like today. I asked the videographer of my team to please give me some space in there and let me take it in. I could still smell the stench of sweating bodies, unwashed, hopeless. And there's a door that says point of no return, a little small exit out to where they could walk to the ships. Many of them died in the middle passageway, to at least 3 million. Can you imagine laying side by side, pretty much naked, vomiting, diarrhea, seasick, menstrual cycles, headaches, all kinds of diseases for 7 days in the dungeon, and then come over here and strip naked and people look at your body and tie you down and separate you from your love. I mean, the psychology. We are still suffering, and not only black people, our whole country is, but certainly people of color, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. If anybody ought to be angry, it ought to be us. My dad, neither my dad or my grandfather or any of my relatives were bitter, and they never taught racism, and they always were very forgiving and taught us to be, that's the Christian thing to do. So we were. But today because it's like here I am almost 70, and this is, what you said was 20, that's what I was saying, it's 2022. It's like, what the heck is going on? I would say hell, but I don't cuss unless I'm really anointed. What the hell is going on? My God, what are we doing? We have a twice impeached man that is obviously psychosomatic and doesn't seem to care, and they're telling us now that he wanted the vice president lynched. When I say make America hate again, it means make America hate again legally, so you can lynch the vice president. We don't need an autocrat in the White House. That's not a partisan statement again. We don't need that kind of leadership. That's not American. And that we're sleeping through it, and we can't fight it with bullets. We got to fight it with ballots. We got to get out there and vote people out. I'm embarrassed as an Oklahoman. This is a private thing with me, but I'm sharing it publicly. It's not necessarily Martin's position or anybody else's. I'm so embarrassed as an Oklahoman, and I was born in San Diego, California, that everyone running for office right now is pro-guns, pro-Trump, pro-God. And they have the little catchphrases to let you know I'm a Christian. Little things like believe and family values and pro-life. Most of the pro-life people I know are heavily pro-guns and heavily death penalty. We have more females in prisons in Oklahoma than any state in the union. We have more people die of the death penalty in this state than any other state, second only to Texas, where Juneteenth occurred in Galveston. So I'm looking back, and I got kids. My kids don't have a clue. I was 40 when my son was born, so they don't know what I know. They've never been called low income and marginalized and underprivileged kids, and neither do their peers. I happened to move to Tulsa in 1971 to South Tulsa because that's where the university, Oral Roberts University, where I went. So that's a place I've always lived within walking distance of Oral's house. That's how close I was to him. I know some of y'all didn't like him, but I loved the man. And at least you can see where the money went. Okay, that's enough. But he was a Native American. He was a Cherokee. And my mother's Cherokee. My dad are Creek Indians. My maternal grandma was born in Boley. I didn't even know Boley existed. I didn't know my maternal grandmother was from Boley till I got to Oklahoma. We had people from here that didn't even tell us about the massacre because they didn't know either. How Tulsa could keep that quiet for 100 years is beyond me. I mean, intelligent, scholarly people, black and white, did not know about it. Where did they learn to keep such a secret? And now it's all over the world. And now the world is looking at America saying, what are you doing there? You're excluding that he would call these whole countries. Do you remember that? That's like saying asshole, the whole country. I can cuss as a Unitarian, right? I think Unitarians cuss. The idea of saying the first African-American president was not an American but was from another country is insulting. Please understand this. When you have gone through what our people have gone through, excuse me, what our people have gone through for 400 years in this country, and to have a black president, the first, he's really half white. So, but they say he's black, but his mama was white. The grandmother who raised him in Kansas was white. He had more white influence than black. But he married a very black woman, and she knew what she was doing, you know. So. But just to call him and to denounce him the way that Trump did was a deep insult to people of color, old 90-year-old, 80-year-old, 100-year-old, and I talked to older black people who were weeping. But that comment alone turned me off. And it's not just, it had nothing to do again with the Republican Party, it had to do with that particular narcissist. And the American people, many of them, millions of us, are just as complicit or complacent as the people who backed Hitler. Hitler didn't do what he did by himself. He used all of Eastern Europe, most of whom were Catholics and Protestants, Christians. In the King James version of the scripture, it says, King James, 16th century English. Before that, he wrote a book on demonology. He was into demonology, witchcraft, the occult. He believed in all that. He hated witches and he sought them and sat in on some trials. But then he didn't write it, but he was the theologian behind it, or had King had his interpreters come up with the King James version, and he says, he quotes Jesus as saying, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all creatures." Now in English, a creature is not a human. A creature is a critter, an animal, to some people a coon or a monster. That means go to Africa, Asia, India, non-Anglo places, and preach the gospel. Save them and enslave them. Slaves learned English from 16th century King's English. And many slaves still hold on to the scriptures, the same scriptures that held them in bondage. And I'm somewhat of a scholar when it comes to the scriptures. But I understand the mentality because we fear God, who has terrible anger management issues, throws these tantrums and storms and tsunamis and volcanoes, and they think Cain's curse made him black. When everybody in the world, according to scientists, the whole planet, the whole human race comes from Africa, which means we were all black at one time until Cain sinned. It turns him up in white. But up until then, everybody had been black. I ain't going to be invited back to this service no more. I think you're probably more sober and sane just because you're humanist. There's something about you that's non-traditional. You have said, I ain't going with the flow. I'm a little bit rebellious right now, okay? That's why I don't relish being called bishop as much. I actually prefer son of a bishop. Mama says, spell it, boy. And I'm a little bit, because at this stage in my life, almost 7 decades, I'm re-evaluating everything. And here's what I need to close with, because I didn't even pay attention what time I got up here, but these people don't. Okay. We ain't been here in an hour. The human race, I have gobs of notes I'm not going to get off. The human race is being upgraded. I know it doesn't look like it. The species is being upgraded. But there's no evolution without dissolution. There's certain things that are dissolving in our very eyes. We can see it. It's on the news. It's in the culture. People don't know what to do. People are afraid they're getting guns. When Obama became president, 20 million guns were sold that year. Now there's over 400 million, more guns than there are cars, more guns than there are people. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One nation under guns, divided, with liberty and justice for a few. It is not. It shouldn't be. Because it is right now twisted. My dad had gun. We live in the ghetto. Everybody had guns, of course. But assault weapons, A-47, and what's the other one? AK-47 and the one, AR-15, blew the little arm. They don't show you or tell you on the news how those children were mangled. Every mass shooting had an AR-15. I can't get stuff together today. I'm looking at you for everything. The bad gun, okay. Assault weapons, if you arm your country with assault weapons, you're going to be assaulted by those weapons. The tension is so high right now, the anger and tension, you can hear it in me, is that people, and I'm a pacifistic man. I love peace. I've been wanting to slap people left. I've never been this way. I got to repent because I'm about to hit somebody. It's like, what's going on? And they're going to, before it's over, between now and 2024, if there's not some radical change, we have a twice impeached former president. And it's on record now for the whole world to see, for those who dare to watch anything besides Fox radio, television. They're saying that the judge for Pence said that Donald Trump and the white supremacist followers of him are the worst threat to our democracy. It's not just Donald Trump. You can't do it by himself. It's these people. I'm thinking, these are intelligent. I know these people. Sweet. They're friends of mine. Wonderful, generous, godly, goodly. What happened? What happened? You don't try to kill your vice president. Won't even show up to the inaugural for the next. That's not the peaceful transfer of power. Oklahoma, pro-guns, pro-God, pro-Trump. I hate these commercials because, I ran for mayor, so I know what it is to get out there. But everybody is, now it's all GOP, so they're all trying to out-Jesus and out-gun and out-Trump each other. This is crazy. And we need to call it what it is. Go to the ballot boxes. And I'm telling people who are being marginalized regarding them, which is people of color, I don't care how long you got to stand in line. And nobody's going to arrest me for taking water to somebody who's standing in the sun. I think we should have vans and buses bringing water if there's lines all the way around the polling places and people are standing in the heat. What country would do that? What consciousness would do that? That's how they want to win by any means necessary? Cold. So don't take it lightly. It's calm here today. We have a calm peace. This church always looks very peaceful and quiet when you drive by. I told you I used to drive by and cast the devil out of this place. Oh, those are a bunch of... I did. I drove by here. I didn't know Dr. Wolf, but I'd seen him on television. I loved his preaching, but I didn't love him because I was told that I wasn't supposed to. Doofus. I was trying to cast the devil out, and I ended up getting cast in, so I'm here. We were homeless, and y'all said, come and take care, and let us live with you and walk with you and talk with you and walk through. We don't agree on everything. The Greek word for agreement is symphoneo, where we give the English word symphony. It doesn't mean to sound the same. It doesn't even mean to sound alike. It just means to sound together. I always like to use the example of a husband and wife agree on everything all the time. One of them ain't necessary. If the ebony and ivory sound the same, look the same, act the same, all those notes, is it 9? It's 9 notes on a piano. Huh? Right? That's what I was saying. 12 notes on the... Smart Alec. How many of them is ebony? But if they all sounded the same, it would be boring. So I like the diversity. Look around. Look at the person next to you and say, I'm really happy that you don't look like me. And while you're on the subject, say, I'm pretty glad I don't look like you. Well, the diversity is beautiful. Diversity, as they say, is the spice of life. So I'm making versions and diversions, even at this stage in my life. And that's slow for me. I'm not trying to build in my other life. I was building above the ground on another foundation of the fundamentalism that I'm a recovering fundamentalist. So I'm doing stuff underground. It's not attractive underground. Nobody's going to like what you do or pay any attention to it. They don't dislike it. They just don't know what you're doing. But I think I'm laying a foundation, and when I go, 100 years from now, they'll remember I came through. Maybe not name, but they'll remember that the shifting in consciousness, because we're dealing with at least 2,000 years of entrenched indoctrination, right? You are recovering too. Don't act like you've been free all your life. Y'all been through stuff. You could probably tell me some stories that would be outlandish of the things you've gone through mentally and psychologically and verbally, how you've thought. You have family members that think you're off, that you're hellbound, that you're crazy. Here we have commercials that I just love, these new commercials, because since Donald Trump made fun of the Asians because of the corona, now you see Asians all over television, in commercials, leading roles in movies and film. I don't know who's behind them, but it's brilliant. You see all these commercials with integrated couples. I was talking to a fundamentalist lady that was working with me on my home some time ago, and I said, she forgot I was black. I said, have you noticed all these integrated couples on commercials? She said, yeah, what is the deal? A little prejudice left out of her. All of a sudden you see these couples, integrated couples. You never hardly have a commercial without a same gender loving couple. Now it's the younger generation. You probably don't freak over it anyway, but the younger kids, they go to school with Hindus and Muslims and Jews and atheists and agnostics and Muslims, and they're just free. Gay people, they have gay teachers and gay dentists and gay clerks. They don't even think about that. Our generation struggles with it. I've never been this free in my life. I thank God, and it takes courage to be free. Freedom is not for cowards. Talk to me, somebody. If you're a coward, you can't handle it. You can't handle the freedom. It's scary at first. It's a little bit intimidating to be this free. You mean I don't have to give a damn? I don't have to care as much? We should all have a bucket list, and we should all have a bucket list. Oh, you read through I was speaking in tongues on that one. You got it. Wrap your arms around yourself and say, I love me. I care about me. But I care about the one on either side of me. I believe you do. And I respect opposing positions or different positions. It's not always opposing. It's just different. The things I've addressed impact us corporately as a country, as a republic, as a democracy. We cannot let any group take us back. All these pro-lifer folks, I'm pro-life, very pro-life, but I'm also very pro-choice. I think you can be both. You don't have to be gay to be proud of gay people. Or like this church, one of the few churches that would actually have a thing at the parade. What do you call it? A what? I'm floating. Yeah, a float. That's amazing. That's unique. Talk to me. This church is so out there and free and unapologetic about being loving and supporting social justice and the marginalized. This is amazing. It's so freeing. And we do it without apology. We do it with power. We do it with positivity, with productivity. We're making a difference. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
Crystal raindrops fall, and the beauty of it all is when the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, I want to spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us. Just the two of us, building castles in the sky, just the two of us, you and I. We look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water's all that is, and it don't make no flowers grow. Good things may come to those who wait, but not for those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us.